Part 1: Shadows of the Past. My name is Ethan Carter. I used to believe that life was a series of choices leading us to predictable outcomes. You make the right decisions and you get rewarded. You make the wrong ones and you pay the price. At least that's what I thought before everything fell apart. It started on a cold autumn evening, the kind where the air bites at your skin, and the streets are painted in shades of orange and gold. I was standing on the balcony of my apartment, staring out at the city below. The lights of Manhattan twinkled like stars that had fallen to earth. It was beautiful, but it felt distant, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Inside, the faint sound of jazz played from the record player. I had always loved jazz. It reminded me of simpler times, back when I believed in things like love and loyalty. But tonight, even the music couldn't drown out the unease gnawing at my chest. "Ethan, are you coming in or not?" Claire's voice broke through my thoughts. I turned to see her standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders in waves, and her green eyes held a sharpness that hadn't been there before. She was beautiful, no doubt about it, but there was something about her tonight that felt off. "Yeah, I'm coming," I replied, forcing a smile. Claire and I had been married for 5 years. We met at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, one of those quaint little places with mismatched furniture and overpriced lattes. She was sitting by the window, sketching in a notebook, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. She had this way of making the world around her seem less chaotic, more meaningful. But that was a long time ago. As I stepped inside, I noticed the table was set for two. Candlelight flickered against the walls, casting long shadows that danced with the rhythm of the music. Claire had gone all out, steak, red wine, the works. "What's the occasion?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Do I need a reason to make dinner for my husband?" She replied, her lips curving into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "No, I guess not," I said, sitting down. We ate in silence for a while, the only sounds coming from the clinking of silverware and the soft hum of the music. I could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air, pressing down on me like a storm cloud about to burst. "So," Claire began, breaking the silence, "how's work going?" "Same as always," I replied. "Deadlines, meetings, the usual grind." "What about you?" She hesitated for a moment, her fork hovering midair. "Busy. The gallery's been keeping me on my toes." Claire was an artist. Her paintings had started gaining attention in the local art scene, and she had recently landed a spot in a prestigious gallery downtown. I was proud of her, but lately, it felt like her success was pulling her further and further away from me. "That's great," I said, though my voice lacked enthusiasm. She looked at me then, really looked at me, as if searching for something. "Ethan, are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, us. Are you happy with us?" I set my fork down, suddenly losing my appetite. "Of course I am. Why would you even ask that?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know. It's just, things feel different lately, like we're drifting apart. Claire, we've both been busy. That's all. It doesn't mean anything, doesn't it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come, 'cause deep down I knew she was right. Things had changed. The late-night conversations, the spontaneous laughter, the sense of being a team, it all felt like a distant memory. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at the screen and saw a message from Liam, my best friend since college. "Work emergency?" Claire asked, her tone laced with sarcasm. "No, it's just Liam," I said, picking up the phone. "Go ahead. Answer it," she said, waving her hand dismissively. I hesitated for a moment before unlocking the phone. Liam's message was short but cryptic. Asterisk, "We need to talk. Call me when you're alone." Asterisk. "Everything okay?" Claire asked, watching me closely. "Yeah, it's nothing," I said, slipping the phone back into my pocket. But it wasn't nothing. Liam wasn't the type to send messages like that unless it was serious. After dinner, Claire went to bed early, claiming she had a headache. I stayed up, nursing a glass of whiskey and staring out the window. The city felt alive in a way I didn't. When I was sure Claire was asleep, I stepped out onto the balcony and called Liam. He picked up on the first ring. "Ethan, we've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "It's about Claire." My stomach tightened. "What about her?" There was a pause on the other end, and when Liam spoke again, his voice was low and urgent. "I think she's hiding something from you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he didn't know what he was talking about. But instead, I found myself asking, "What makes you say that?" "I can't explain over the phone," he said. "Meet me tomorrow. Same place as always." "Liam, just trust me, Ethan. You need to hear this." He hung up before I could respond, leaving me alone with 1,000 questions and no answers. As I stood there, the city lights blurred into a haze, and for the first time in years, I felt truly afraid. Because deep down, I knew that whatever Liam had to tell me, it was going to change everything. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. Part 2: Cracks in the Mirror. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy weight in my chest. Claire was already gone by the time I got out of bed, her side of the bed cold and untouched. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Asterisk, had to leave early for the gallery. Don't forget to eat breakfast. Love, Claire. Asterisk. The words felt hollow, like they were written out of habit rather than genuine emotion. I stared at the note for a moment before crumpling it in my hand and tossing it into the trash. I spent the morning pacing the apartment, replaying Liam's words in my head. Asterisk. She's hiding something from you. Asterisk. What could Claire possibly be hiding? Sure, things had been tense between us lately, but I never thought it was anything more than the usual ups and downs of marriage. By noon, I couldn't take the waiting anymore. I grabbed my coat and headed out to meet Liam. We always met at the same place when something serious was going on, a small diner on the corner of 8th and Franklin. It wasn't anything fancy, but it had a kind of charm that made it feel like a safe haven. The kind of place where secrets could be spilled over coffee and greasy burgers. When I walked in, Liam was already there, sitting in our usual booth by the window. He looked up as I approached, his face grim. "Ethan," he said, standing to shake my hand. "Liam," I replied, sliding into the booth across from him. "All right, I'm here. What's this about?" He glanced around the diner, as if making sure no one was listening, before leaning in closer. "I didn't want to tell you this over the phone, but I saw Claire last night." I frowned. "Okay? She was home with me last night." "No," he said, shaking his head. "I mean, I saw her before that, around 6 p.m. She was at the Blue Orchid." The name hit me like a slap. The Blue Orchid was a high-end bar downtown, the kind of place where people went to have private conversations or make deals they didn't want anyone else to know about. "Are you sure it was her?" I asked, my voice tight. "I'm sure," Liam said firmly. "She was sitting in one of the corner booths talking to some guy. I didn't recognize him, but they looked close." My heart sank. "Close how?" Liam hesitated, as if searching for the right words. "Look, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but it didn't seem like a casual conversation." She was leaning in, smiling, touching his hand. "It wasn't the way you talk to a friend or a business associate." I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest, but it was quickly drowned out by a wave of confusion and hurt. "Did she see you?" "No." I stayed out of sight. I didn't want to make a scene, especially if I wasn't sure what was going on. I leaned back in the booth, running a hand through my hair. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what Liam was telling me. Claire had always been the one person I thought I could trust completely. The idea of her meeting another man in secret felt like a betrayal I wasn't prepared to face. "Ethan," Liam said, his voice softer now, "I'm telling you this because you're my best friend. I don't want to see you get hurt, but you need to find out what's going on." I nodded slowly. Yeah, you're right." We sat in silence for a moment before the waitress came by to refill our coffee cups. I barely noticed her. My mind was already working on a plan. After leaving the diner, I decided to take a walk. The crisp autumn air helped clear my head, but it didn't make the knot in my stomach go away. I kept replaying the image Liam had painted in my mind. Claire, sitting in a dimly lit booth, laughing and touching the hand of a man I didn't know. By the time I got back to the apartment, it was late afternoon. Claire still wasn't home, which wasn't unusual for her these days. I decided to use the time to do a little digging. I started with her laptop. Felt wrong, invading her privacy like this, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. Her emails were mostly work-related, filled with correspondence about upcoming gallery events and art commissions. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then I opened her calendar and noticed something strange. There was an entry for the previous evening, marked simply as meeting. No details, no location, just the word meeting. I frowned. Claire was usually meticulous about her calendar, always including the names of clients or colleagues she was meeting with. This vague entry felt suspicious. Next, I checked her phone. I knew her passcode. She'd given it to me years ago, back when we trusted each other without question. Most of her messages were the usual, texts from friends, family, and colleagues. But then I found a thread with an unknown number. The messages were brief and cryptic. Unknown number ***. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. ***. Claire ***. Me too. Same place. ***. Unknown number ***, of course. 6 p.m. ***. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. It was undeniable now. Claire was meeting someone behind my back. I heard the sound of keys jingling in the hallway, and my heart leapt into my throat. A moment later, the door opened, and Claire walked in, carrying a canvas bag filled with groceries. "Hey," she said, setting the bag down on the counter. "You're home early." I forced a smile, slipping her phone back onto the table. "Yeah, I wasn't feeling great, so I decided to call it a day." She gave me a concerned look. "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" "No, I'm fine," I said quickly. "Just tired." She nodded, then turned her attention to unpacking the groceries. I watched her, trying to reconcile the woman standing in front of me with the image of the woman Liam had described. "Claire," I said suddenly, my voice sharper than I intended. She looked up, startled. "Yeah. Where were you last night around 6 p.m.? Her eyes widened slightly, and I saw a flicker of something. Panic, maybe, cross her face before she quickly masked it. "I told you. I was at the gallery." "Why?" I felt my chest tighten. She was lying. I knew she was lying. "No reason," I said, forcing a casual tone. She studied me for a moment, as if trying to gauge whether I believed her before turning back to the groceries. As I stood there, watching her, a cold realization settled over me. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built my life around, was keeping secrets. And if I wanted the truth, I was going to have to find it myself. But deep down, I was terrified of what I might uncover. Part 3. The first threads unravel ***. The next few days passed in a haze of suspicion and unease. Claire acted like everything was normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a wall between us, invisible but impenetrable. Her smiles felt forced, her laughter hollow, and every time she looked at me, I wondered if she was hiding something behind those green eyes. I had to know the truth. On Friday evening, Claire told me she had another late meeting at the gallery. It was the perfect opportunity. As soon as she left, I grabbed my jacket and followed her. I kept my distance, careful not to let her see me. She walked briskly down the street, her heels clicking against the pavement, until she reached the Blue Orchid. My stomach churned as I watched her step inside. I waited a few minutes before following her in. The bar was dimly lit, with soft jazz playing in the background. It smelled of expensive whiskey and polished wood. I scanned the room, my heart pounding until I saw her. She was sitting in a corner booth just like Liam had described. And she wasn't alone. The man sitting across from her was tall, with dark hair and a sharp suit that looked tailored to perfection. He leaned in close, speaking softly, and Claire laughed. Really laughed, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My hands clenched into fists, but I forced myself to stay calm. I couldn't confront her here, not without knowing more. Instead, I found a seat at the bar where I could observe them without being noticed. I ordered a drink I didn't touch and watched as the two of them talked, their body language intimate and familiar. At one point, the man reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I couldn't take it anymore. I got up and left, the sound of their laughter echoing in my ears as the door swung shut behind me. By the time Claire came home that night, I had already decided what I needed to do. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag by the door. "You're up late." "I couldn't sleep," I replied, my voice steady. She gave me a tired smile and kissed my cheek. "I'm going to take a shower. Long day." I watched her walk down the hall, her steps light and unbothered, as if nothing was wrong. As soon as I heard the water running, I reached for her phone. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't care anymore. I needed answers. The messages from the unknown number were still there, and there were new ones from earlier that evening. Unknown number. Asterisk. You looked beautiful tonight. Asterisk. Claire asterisk asterisk. Thank you. I had a great time. Asterisk. Unknown number asterisk asterisk. Same time next week? Asterisk. Claire asterisk asterisk, of course. Can't wait. Asterisk. My blood ran cold. I heard the shower turn off, so I quickly put the phone back where I'd found it and sat down on the couch, trying to look casual. Claire came out a few minutes later, her hair damp and her face free of makeup. She looked at me and smiled, but I couldn't bring myself to smile back. "Is everything okay?" she asked, frowning.
"Yeah, elite.
Just tired." She hesitated for a moment before nodding and heading to the bedroom. Once she was asleep, I made my decision. The next day, I called Liam. "I need your help," I said. "Anything." He replied without hesitation. "I need to know who this guy is. The one she's meeting." There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure about this, Ethan? Once you go down this road, there's no turning back." "I don't have a choice," I said. "I need to know." Liam agreed to help, and by the following evening, he had a name. Marcus Hale. He's a corporate lawyer. Liam told me over the phone. Works for one of those big firms downtown. Single, no kids. And he's been seen at the Blue Orchid pretty regularly. Looks like he's been meeting Claire there for at least a few weeks. "Did you find anything else?" I asked, my voice tight. "Not yet, but I'll keep digging." "Thanks, Liam. I owe you." "You don't owe me anything," he said. "Just be careful, okay?" I hung up and sat in silence for a long time, staring at the name Liam had given me.
Marcus Hale.
The name felt like a knife in my chest. That night, I decided to confront Claire. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, when I walked into the room. "Claire," I said, my voice steady but firm. She looked up, startled. "Yeah. Who's Marcus Hale?" Her face went pale. For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights, and then she quickly masked her expression. "I don't know who that is," she said, too quickly. "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice rising. "I know you've been meeting him." She stood up, crossing her arms defensively. "Have you been spying on me? Don't turn this around on me," I snapped. "I deserve to know the truth. Who is he?" For a moment, I thought she was going to deny it again, but then her shoulders slumped, and she let out a shaky breath. He's a friend," she said quietly. "A friend," I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "Since when do you meet friends in secret and hold their hands in bars?" "It's not what you think," she said, her voice trembling. "I can explain." "Then explain," I said, my anger barely contained. She hesitated, looking down at the floor. "I've been struggling, Ethan. With everything. Marcus is just someone I can talk to. That's all. Do you expect me to believe that? I asked, my voice cold. It's the truth, she insisted, tears welling up in her eyes. I swear it's nothing more than that. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But the doubt was already there, festering like a wound that wouldn't heal. I don't know if I can trust you anymore, I said finally. Her face crumpled, and she sank back onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant to hurt you, but the damage was already done. And as I stood there, watching her cry, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The first thread had been pulled, and now everything was starting to unravel. Part 4. Beneath the surface ****. The days that followed were a blur of silence and tension. Claire and I moved around each other like strangers, careful not to touch the raw edges of the argument we'd had. She tried to act normal, making coffee in the morning, asking about my day, but the cracks in our relationship were impossible to ignore. I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus Hale. Her explanation that he was just someone she could talk to felt like a half-truth at best, a lie at worst. My mind kept circling back to the texts, the laughter, the way she let him hold her hand. Nothing about it felt innocent. I needed answers. That's when I decided to take things a step further. The following evening, I found myself parked outside Marcus Hale's office building. It was a sleek, modern structure in the heart of downtown, all glass and steel. I had no plan, no idea what I was even looking for. I just knew I had to see this man for myself. Around 7 p.m., he finally emerged. He was just as Liam had described, tall, well-dressed, exuding the kind of confidence that came from years of success. He walked with purpose, his phone pressed to his ear, a briefcase in his other hand. I stayed in my car, watching as he hailed a cab and disappeared into the night. I didn't follow him. I wasn't ready for that yet. But seeing him in person made everything feel more real, more immediate. This wasn't just some abstract idea anymore. This was a man who had somehow inserted himself into my life, into my marriage. The next day, I decided to confront Claire again. But this time, I didn't want to go in blind. I called Liam. I need you to find out more about Marcus, I said. I need to know everything. Liam hesitated. Ethan, are you sure this is the right move? Maybe you should just talk to Claire. Really talk to her. I've tried, I said, my voice hard. She's not telling me the truth. I need to know what's going on. Liam sighed. All right, I'll see what I can find. 2 days later, Liam called me back. You're not going to like this, he said. What is it? I asked, my stomach tightening. Marcus isn't just some random guy, Liam said. He's connected to Claire's gallery. He's one of their biggest donors. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. What? Yeah, Liam continued. Apparently, he's been sponsoring some of their exhibitions for years. That's probably how Claire met him. Why didn't she tell me? I asked, more to myself than to Liam. I don't know, Liam said. But there's more. I braced myself. What? There's a rumor going around. Nothing confirmed, but enough people are talking about it that Marcus has a habit of getting close to the women he works with, especially artists. He's been linked to at least 2 other women in the past, both of them married. The words hit me like a hammer. Do you think he's? I couldn't even finish the sentence. I don't know, Liam said cautiously, but it's possible. Look, Ethan, I know this is hard, but you need to talk to Claire. Really talk to her. Otherwise, this is just going to eat you alive. That night, I waited for Claire to come home. When she walked through the door, she looked exhausted. Her shoulders slumped, her face pale. Hey, she said softly, setting her bag down. Claire, we need to talk, I said, my voice firm. She froze, her eyes darting to mine. Ethan, I don't think I can do this right now. I'm really tired.
No, interrupta.
We're not putting this off anymore. Sit down. Reluctantly, she sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Who is Marcus Hale to you? I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. She flinched. I already told you. Don't. I cut her off. Don't lie to me, Claire. I know he's connected to the gallery. I know he's one of your donors. And I know he has a reputation for getting involved with married women. So tell me the truth. Her face went pale, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it again. But then she let out a shaky breath and looked down at her hands. It's not what you think, she said quietly. Then tell me what it is, I demanded. She hesitated, her voice trembling as she spoke. Marcus, he's been helping me. The gallery's been struggling financially, and he offered to sponsor a couple of my projects. That's how it started. And now, depressed, she looked up at me, tears brimming in her eyes. I swear, Ethan, nothing has happened between us. He's been there for me. I've been so stressed, and you've been so distant lately, and I didn't know how to talk to you. Marcus listened. That's all it was. Her words stung, but I wasn't convinced. You expect me to believe that? After everything I've seen? It's the truth, she said, her voice breaking. I know it looks bad, but I never meant for it to get this far. I felt so alone, Ethan, and I didn't know how to fix us. I stared at her, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to believe her, to take her at her word and move on. But another part of me, the part that had seen her with Marcus, couldn't let it go. Do you love him? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes widened in shock. What? No, of course not. Then why? I asked, my voice rising. Why would you go to him instead of coming to me? I don't know, she cried, tears streaming down her face. I don't know, Ethan. I was scared, okay? Scared that if I told you how I was feeling, you wouldn't care. That you'd just brush it off like you always do. Her words hit me like a slap. Had I really been that distant? That blind to what she was going through? For a long time, neither of us said anything. The only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Finally, Claire spoke, her voice barely audible.
I'm sorry, Ethan.
I know I've hurt you, and I hate myself for it. But I need you to believe me when I say that nothing happened with Marcus. I made a mistake, but it wasn't that. I didn't know what to say. The woman sitting in front of me was both familiar and a stranger. Someone I loved and someone I didn't recognize. I need time, I said finally, my voice hollow. Claire nodded, wiping her tears. I understand. She stood up and walked to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room. As I sat there in the dark, I realized that the truth wasn't as simple as I'd hoped. Maybe Claire was telling the truth. Maybe she wasn't. But either way, the foundation of our marriage had been shaken, and I didn't know if we could ever rebuild it. For the first time in my life, I felt completely untethered, like I was drifting in a sea of uncertainty with no shore in sight. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure if I wanted to find my way back. Part 5, the breaking point. The days turned into weeks, and the distance between Claire and me only grew. We spoke in fragments, exchanged half-hearted attempts at normalcy, but the weight of everything unsaid lingered like a storm cloud over our home. I tried to focus on work, on anything that could distract me, but my mind kept circling back to Marcus Hale, to Claire, to the life we had built that now felt like it was crumbling beneath my feet. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that nothing had happened, that it was all a misunderstanding, that we could somehow fix this. But the doubts were always there, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. One evening, I came home to find Claire sitting at the kitchen table. She looked tired, her face pale and drawn, as if the weight of everything had finally caught up to her. We need to talk, she said softly. I nodded, sitting down across from her. I've been thinking a lot about us, she began, her voice trembling. About everything that's happened. And I realized, I can't keep doing this. To you. To myself. What are you saying? I asked, my chest tightening. She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring nervously. I think we need some time apart, to figure out who we are, what we want, to see if there's anything left to save. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. So that's it? You're giving up? I'm not giving up, she said, her voice breaking. But we're not the same people we were when we got married, Ethan. Somewhere along the way, we lost each other. And I don't know how to find our way back. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that we could fix this if we just tried harder. But deep down, I knew she was right. Things hadn't been the same for a long time, and maybe we were both too broken to put the pieces back together. Where will you go? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll stay with my sister for a while, she said. Just until we figure things out. I nodded, unable to look at her. The next morning, Claire packed a small suitcase and left. She hugged me at the door, and for a moment, it felt like the Claire I had fallen in love with was still there, buried beneath all the hurt and regret. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face, and then she was gone. The apartment felt empty without her. The silence was deafening, and every corner of the space seemed to echo with memories of her. Her laughter, her smile, the way she used to hum to herself while cooking. For the first time in years, I was truly alone. I spent the next few days in a haze, going through the motions of work and life but feeling like a ghost of myself. Liam checked in on me, but I couldn't bring myself to talk about it. What was there to say? That my marriage was falling apart? That I didn't know who I was without her? A week later, I got a call from Claire. Hey, she said, her voice hesitant. Hey, I replied, my heart racing. I wanted to check in, she said. See how you're doing. I'm fine, Elid. How about you? I'm okay, she said. It's been hard, but I think this time apart is what we needed. To think, to breathe. I didn't respond. Ethan, she continued, her voice trembling. I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Even when things got hard, even when I didn't know how to talk to you, I always loved you. Her words were like a knife to my chest. Then why did it have to come to this? Because love isn't always enough, she said softly. Sometimes people grow apart, and sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is to let them go. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them away. So what now? I don't know, she admitted. Maybe we'll find our way back to each other, or maybe we won't. But either way, I hope you find happiness, Ethan. You deserve that. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of the apartment, her words echoing in my mind. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for someone you love is to let them go. I didn't know if I believed that, but as I sat there, staring out at the city lights, I realized that maybe she was right. Maybe the only way to move forward was to let go of the past, to accept that some things couldn't be fixed no matter how much you wanted them to be. It wasn't the ending I had hoped for, but it was an ending. And maybe, just maybe, it was also the beginning of something new.